Welcome to the Photography Opinion Podcast. We discuss all things photo, video, and camera related. I'm Ben Lucas.
And I'm Stuart Marlantis.
And this is Photo Op. Hello, podcast listeners. We have a very special episode for you today. So it is, coming up end of January. Have you quit your New Year's resolution yet?
Not quite yet, but I'm getting there.
So January is, of course, when we try and start over and reinvent ourselves and try and start with a fresh slate, all of that goodness. So we thought it would be a good opportunity to give ourselves some advice. So last time we were talking about kind of letter to younger me. This is more listicle bullet point form. But here are 30 things we wish we could tell our younger selves. Before we get started, the advice I would give 6-year-old me and 25-year-old me are very different pieces of advice. So how are we defining our younger selves?
Well, there is one major point in your life where you are open to some reinvention, potentially some good advice, and that is as a fresh graduate from high school. That's a pretty big turning point for a lot of people. Not the only turning point, but a pretty big turning point, especially as a career path. So that is what we're choosing as our point to time travel back to and slap ourselves across the face and say, no, here's what you should do. So we're going to give ourselves 30 pieces of advice as we would freshly graduating from high school.
Excellent. So the very first one that I will throw into the ring, number one, very first thing that I would tell younger me, or number 30, counting forward, counting backwards. It doesn't matter. I don't think we're going to count all these out. There are 30 of them. Trust us. We each got 15. Anyway. No, but the first thing that I would tell myself is try everything and fail fast. Mm-hmm. Fail fast is the entrepreneur's mantra. And that does not mean give up, but there's something to be said. There are some people who are professional quitters, but they are people who try something and then basically they try and test ideas and then they immediately quit and ditch the ideas that are bad ones. So there are people that work on, an app for 10 years and then at some point someone says, no, this is dumb, no one wants this. Well, that's the kind of thing that you need to figure out back when you're starting. So I went through about 5 different majors, but I invested way too much time into each one of them, pretty much doing all of the core curriculum for the major before I figured out, I don't, this isn't for me. I don't want to do this. I'm not particularly skilled at it, and I can keep driving myself to it, but I'm making myself miserable doing it. So I thought I wanted to be like an architect or a civil engineer, and I tried that so hard because that was like all I knew. But then as soon as I discovered photography as a class for my design and architecture classes, that was a kind of turning point of like, oh, no, I should have figured this out a long time ago and not wasted all of that time and tuition money. So try stuff, fail fast. When it came to me in photography, like try shooting sports cars, try shooting roller derby, try shooting portraits and babies and pets. Try everything. Figure out what you do and don't like.
There are going to be a couple of these categories where they are underlined because they're so important, so we each have them on our lists, and this is one of them. I similarly have try everything, and I would jump in really quick and say that tuition money wasn't wasted. I mean, it seems like it was, but that was part of the journey to trying everything and to eventually finding the direction you wanted to go in. So yes, it's an expensive way to find a direction. Could that have been more efficient? Sure, but that's not how it worked out, and that's okay. I did the same thing. I don't think I went through 4 or 5 majors, but I went through a few. I actually was pretty far down the computer science computer engineering kind of track, and I eventually realized that would make me not very happy. I do some of that stuff in my day-to-day job right now, but it is very heavily weighted with a lot of media production and photo and video kind of stuff. So I lucked into something where I can combine both of those interests. But yes, try everything. Try everything that that you can. College is a great time if you're going to college to do that, just because there are so many, colleges or universities are a concentration of all sorts of different opportunities in one small area. In my opinion, that is the major, if not certainly one of the major great things about university is you've just got so many different things that are available to you within a stone's throw. So take advantage of it, try everything, use that tuition money to take advantage of those opportunities that are available to you. And nothing's really off the table. It is an interesting route to find what you want to do, and it's kind of ever changing. It's still changing for me, for that matter. So don't be afraid of it.
Something else piggybacking off that one that I would say is that school is not the end of your education.
Mm-hmm.
So, like we talked about in a previous episode, should you go to school for photography? Probably not.
Mm-hmm.
But there is my favorite quote is Mark Twain. I never let schooling get in the way of my education.
Yep.
Always learn. Always find things that interest you. Always learn new techniques. The people who burn out, because photography is so easy and accessible to everyone, the people who burn out are the ones who stop learning and stop reinventing themselves and get too comfortable doing a style. For a long time, what I wanted to do were these kind of photo manipulation things, which I still do a decent amount of. But by the time I finally became skilled enough to do it, it had become a fad where anyone on the internet can do that. And now all the really good photographers are trying to get as much done in camera. I'm like, oh, I need to up my photo game and stop relying so heavily on Photoshop. So, it's just there is always something new and always something you can learn. So take the time to invest in you, and don't let school be the only reason or driver for that.
Yeah, this actually moves nicely into another point that I have, kind of following along on those lines, that if you don't keep educating yourself, at the very least, you're going to slowly just kind of fade into the background and be less notable and less important in your chosen field. And so you have to, if you intend to continue to be a force to be reckoned with, you have to keep learning, keep educating yourself, or you're just going to become stale. Along similar lines is something that I have learned over time, which I'm calling tech can set you apart, but only temporary. And that there are a lot of trends. There's a lot of new, exciting things that you can buy and test and play with, and that'll help set you apart for a while. But that's only temporary. You need to master. You need to master what you're doing. You need to have good core competency skills, because these flash in the pan things, although you can make a name for yourself perhaps temporarily, it doesn't have a lot of sticking power. Like I was very, very early into drones, which sounds silly now, but like back when I was doing it, they didn't fly themselves. Like it was all manual. Like you didn't even have gimbals. Like
you
cameras
built your first drone. You built your first drone. You were pre-DJI taking over the market.
Yeah, exactly. Like pre all of this ease of use stuff. And to be fair, I'm not complaining about that. I think the ease of use in drones now is amazing and awesome, and I have taken advantage of it certainly. But that was something that like I got attention from GoPro. I got attention from a bunch of different newspapers. Like I got to do some kind of cool things, or at least get my name out there because I was early in an interesting piece of technology. But am I notable as a drone photographer now? No, not at all. Part of that was I moved on to other things, or not entirely. I still shoot with drones with some regularity, but part of it was that I moved on to other things. Part of it was that I just didn't. At the time, I had this opportunity, and I was really encouraged. I even through university went to Hollywood and was hugely encouraged. Being early days, to move down there and be a drone photographer full time and get into Hollywood and movie production and stuff. And I could certainly see that becoming a thing. And maybe I should have done that. Who knows, right? But I didn't. I got kind of bored with it. I saw like a huge influx of people, and I was like, I'm just gonna do other things. And I didn't really stick with it. I didn't really master the medium. And I slowly just became less and less notable until people stopped paying attention to the stuff that I was making with drones. So if you're going to do something similar, if you find a new fun piece of technology or new kind of sub field, you really need to put in the work and continually work on it and reinvent yourself and work on building those core skills with that piece of technology, or you will just fade into the background. So yeah, tech is cool, but it is no replacement for core skills.
Yeah, tech is cool, but it's what you can do with it that actually matters.
Exactly.
So you can't rely on that.
No. You can't buy your way into notoriety.
That goes perfect into my next one. Buy less stuff.
Yep.
So when I first started out, most of the gigs that I were doing I was charging the amount of money that the thing was that I needed to finish that job. If I did a music video, I charged how much it would be for me to buy a slider or a gimbal. My first wedding, I charged how much it would be to buy a 7200. And like when you're starting out, like that's a good way to get the things you need. Mm-hmm. But one of the things that I bought was a green screen, blue screen pop-up I have used a grand total of 0 times. So like, I'm like, but it's a good deal. I'm sure I'll find use for it eventually. No, it's been 10 years and you've never used it.
Hey, I will say with the pandemic, I've used a pop-up green screen more than I ever have in my entire time of owning green screen. But it's only for fun. It's not even for anything real.
The irony is 2 months ago, I just bought a green screen.
Yeah. But I'm only using it as an elaborate joke, basically, like to entertain people. I'm not even really. It's not even real. Like
no, because the pop-up I had was a 5x7, and the one I bought was a 10x10.
Well,
so I actually do have a use for that one.
Yeah, you have got a use,
and it was a lot cheaper. But still, Ben, you have so much stuff. Mm-hmm. You can get the job done with less stuff. Being able to find the thing is going to be a harder issue for you than not having the right thing to use. Just seriously, we get so focused on gear and tech specs, mm-hmm. and right now people are asking like, hey, what camera should I buy? Which, by the way, we did an episode on that. If you're curious what camera you should buy, go look at our holiday deals mm-hmm. thing where we talk about all the cameras in depth. However, literally any camera made in the last, let's say, 5 years, it's going to be great. It's going to be way better than what I learned on. So just like, just buy less stuff, be less focused on the stuff, and more focused on what you can do with it.
Very quick follow-up. I have a similar one. Gear doesn't matter mostly. And by that I mean there are certain things that you can't do without certain pieces of gear, right? Like if you don't have a lens fast enough to shoot in a really dark situation, you're just not going to be able to do that.
Before too.
We have talked about this before, but what I'm saying is like, one, certainly minimize on gear, buy as little as you can get away with to accomplish the task that you have at hand, or to build your skills. So only buy gear, basically. Why I say mostly, gear doesn't matter, mostly, is gear is okay to buy when it gives you a capability or lets you truly expand your skills in a way that your current set of gear doesn't allow you to do. But that's the only time you should buy it, unless you just want to throw away money. There you go.
There you go. So since it is you are graduated from high school and mm-hmm. looking at opportunities, maybe you're getting a job or going to apprentice for someone or go to college. Whatever it is you choose to do, your world is really small. You need mm-hmm. to expand it. You need to make as many connections as you can. I finished college thinking, pretty much all of the students around me were idiots and all of the teachers were as unhelpful as possible. I had a very atypical college experience in that I hated it and it was awful. But one of the things that I definitely failed to do was I got all of the skills that I thought I needed and I went out into the world and then I floundered for a very long time because it's not about what you can do, it's about who you know. So you need to know more people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 100%. You definitely need to know more people. I will say also, kind of along those lines, is don't railroad yourself into a perceived path forward. Right? Like I had an idea, graduating high school, that there was this path that I was already going down, and there was no deviating. There was no exploring other avenues. There was no talking to other people about other avenues. I was just on this path, and that was it. And that made me really not happy in the short term at that time in my life. That I just felt like I had to force myself into doing this, and really meeting new people and talking to people and learning other avenues is what led me to what I'm doing today very directly. I basically changed majors because of a couple friends of mine, just meeting them and learning about what they were doing. So talking to people and meeting people can very directly impact your direction. And that's cool. That's like a huge part of it. I mean, they can be partners in business and in cool projects. They can inspire career shifts. And that's a great thing about it.
That's awesome. Let's see. What's something else on your list? What do you got?
I would say, although it is good to befriend everybody and to keep an ear to the ground, so to speak, focus less on what others are doing, on others' output. And I don't mean like not entirely, right? I don't take this to the extreme. Like what I mean by this is, it is very easy to compare your output, your work to other people and be like, oh, well, mine sucks. Like, mine is terrible. Theirs is super good. Like, why even bother? Like, what other people are doing is so much better, so much more sophisticated, so much cooler than what I can do. You know, they've got all these resources that I don't have. Like, how could I possibly stack up to that? And so, like, it's good to use people as inspiration, right? Or there's some comparative comparisons that you can do with other people that are useful, but don't do it too much. Like, it's very easy to get stuck in like a depression well, almost, of like, I'll never be as good as everybody else. And a big part of that is you see the nitty-gritty detail in your own life. Like, you see the work and the difficulty it takes to make something cool. And you don't see that with other people. It's the classic social media trap, right? Like, everybody gives their best self.
It's your
online.
behind the scenes versus their highlight reel.
Exactly. So I say focus less on what others are doing or what you perceive others are doing, and focus more on what you're actually doing and what you can do.
I have two that directly go into that one. The first one is focus on being successful, not looking successful.
Yep.
I mean, I have two stories about that. One is there was a photographer that I was talking to, and I thought he was a big hot shot, and because, you know, he drives Mercedes and he has, you know, expensive, you know, Louis Vuitton shoes, and he's like, I'm a rich person, so I need to look like a successful rich person.
Yep.
But then I realized that, like, all of his workshops take, you know, 3 times as much money to put on as he actually brings in from the workshop, and it's kind of just a subsidy for his advertising, and like, he's not actually. I'm like, oh, this is not like, how do you actually get business? He's like, oh yeah, I don't really know. I did a bunch of black hat SEO things that Google has banned, so now I'm on page 16 instead of page 1. So best of luck to you. Well, this is not a good model to learn from now, is it? Versus someone else at a wedding show I know, very quiet, very reserved. Their photography is only okay, so. Like, they're not great, but I actually found out that they make like $100,000 a year after all their expenses, and they're like, yeah, I could grow bigger, but I don't like working more than 40 hours a week. I'm like, you what?
Yeah, unfortunately, like, I know people will respond to this and will say, "Oh, but there are people that just fake it till you make it," right? Like, fake it till you make it is to some degree a good thing, and there are people that just have the money pit that they can just throw away to
Like
eventually
movie
become
pass.
successful. Yeah, yeah. Well, they crashed and burned, but it was cool for 5 minutes. But yeah, I mean, there
That was a
there
good summer.
there are exceptions to this, just as there are exceptions to many things we're talking about. But I will say, at the very least, you will feel so much better with yourself if you are actually trying to be truly successful instead of just looking successful. Like, you will feel like, we struggle with imposter syndrome, and you will feel so much imposter syndrome if you just look successful instead of actually focusing on being successful. So yeah, like, it can occasionally work with some very rare, exceptional individuals that tend to just have a lot of money to throw away. But I imagine that at the end of the day, they stare at the ceiling and wonder if people are going to eventually find out who they truly are. And in that case, they truly are just a veneer on no talent. So
Yeah,
be talented.
the other half of that, the second statement there, is that there are photographers who are going to be more successful than you, even though they are worse photographers, because they actually did the thing.
Hmm. Hmm.
If you talk about doing a thing, it does not matter. If you see someone do something and you're like, Psh, that's garbage, I could have done it better. The difference is they did it.
Yep.
Do the thing.
I have so many of these that dovetail into do
Do
the
the
thing,
thing.
basically.
Do the thing.
And like being one of mine, being busy without any output is worthless, right?
Ooh.
And procrastination will kill many cool things. Like, those are classic do the thing suggestions.
I actually have that one on my list as well. Being
Mhm.
busy is not an accomplishment.
Yep.
Saying I worked for 40 hours on this when it would have taken you 10 if you knew what you were doing is not a good thing.
Mhm.
More work is not better.
No, no. Yeah, more work is lack of efficiency. Right. Yeah, if you don't have any output at the end of the day, then what's the point? Like, so you worked and you did nothing? Like, so you worked. Great. Like, we have a unfortunate obsession, I feel like, in the United States, and kind of in Western culture in general,
Indeed.
that we working is the utmost, that, like, oh, we all work so much, we must be good, we must be successful because we work long hours, and like, who cares about that, right? Like, at the end of the day, did you make anything cool out of it? No. Well, then, so what? I hope that we shift toward what we're actually doing with our time, with that output being valuable more than just the sheer number
Indeed.
of hours you spent on something. So, yeah.
I mean, on top of that one, figure out how to create systems for yourself.
Hmm.
And then if you're going to work on anything, work like hell to optimize those systems.
Yep.
So just one very quick example of this is when you finish a photo shoot, what happens? Does your memory card just like go into the bottom of your bag until you remember to fish it out? Does it just kind of float around? Do your photos just go onto your desktop in a folder called Photos? Like, what happens between the point where you take the photo, or even going earlier than that to the point where someone contacts you? If you have a bunch of potential leads where people haven't decided if they want to hire you yet, how do you keep track of all of them so you don't forget to follow up with one of them? Work on figuring out these systems and creating ways to foolproof this for you. Plug in that memory card immediately. Like,
Hmm.
back up those photos immediately. Figure out the things that work and then optimize these systems down. When I first started doing weddings, it was not uncommon to be editing a wedding for 40 hours. But then I got down to I can do a whole wedding minus the album in a single day. So, there is just you need to work on optimizing these systems and getting all of the grunt work out that just honestly doesn't need to happen.
Along the same lines as output, I have a couple things. One, and this harkens back a little bit to what we were discussing before. People can just get lucky in any field. You can just
Very
get
true.
lucky and be successful just because you were lucky, pretty much. And that goes for some fields more than others, but pretty much any field, people are just getting lucky and become a success. That being said, output outweighs luck for the vast majority of people. We have this kind of survivorship bias where we look at people who, at the end of the day, were just lucky, and we perceive that as like the only way to get into it. And really, if you look at the large scale of whatever field you're in, people that are putting stuff out are the people that seem, and they can even seem lucky, right? Like their constant output over years and years of work leads to some big break, and suddenly they're a huge success. And that wasn't luck; that was just output over time. And we're just looking at the short version of the story. So if you're trying to be, this huge, notable person in your field, or even just successful in general to follow your own goals, consistent output is going to outweigh any lucky break, and it will lead to lucky breaks. Luck is often just continuing to work until somebody pays attention.
Indeed. I mean, think about any band who's a one-hit wonder. I dare you to name one song besides Safety Dance by Men Without Hats.
It's fair enough. Yep. And when you are putting stuff out, I should say, show it off a little bit. I mean, don't be a jerk, but I have this as make a reel early and keep it up to date, or some other proof of work. Whatever a reel is
make a portfolio, and if you need help, that's literally one of the first episodes we did.
Exactly. So this is a little bit of a callback, but yeah, make a reel if you're a video person. Make some portfolio, make a website. Whatever we've already discussed. I would just want to bring that back up again and say, make that early and update it often, because who's going to believe that you're capable of doing some cool thing if you don't show them that you are.
I mean, one of my own personal failings is that I wanted to focus my website very specifically, because my biggest pet peeve was the jack of all trades thing where you shoot equestrian and babies and sports cars and weddings. I'm like, you can't do all of those things well. No. So I'm like, just portraits, different kinds of portraits. That's it. Well, then I worked in a studio where I did products, and I learned how to do products really, really well. And then I got hired by Ferrari, Nintendo, Microsoft, Leatherman, Costco, Amazon. And I do a ton of stuff with portraits or with products, and none of it's on my website. And then so when someone's like, oh, I didn't know you did that. Yeah, because I don't show it. So, I mean, that's the thing. If you don't one of the things that my dad liked to say was, toot your own horn or someone will use it as a urinal. So, yeah, you need to show off the things that you do. I just had a friend be like, oh, I didn't know you did video. I do. But I'm bad at showing it. So no, that's gonna be my New Year's resolution. I need to get video and products up on my website. Thank you, Stuart. This helped me already. There we go.
Along those lines, since you mentioned the huge, the deluge of stuff on a site that makes it really unfocused, this one is a little bit follows along with that and is perhaps a little bit more focused on me personally, but maybe specialize a little more. Again, this is telling a younger me this. My thing is kind of doing all the things sort of competently, maybe.
You do all the things above average competency to the point where someone of average or below competency thinks you're a wizard.
Well, that's very kind, but
but here's the thing. I will say I'm way better at photography than you are.
100%.
That's because that's the only thing I do.
And I will 100% concede to people in my skill set that are better than me. There are so many that are better than me. I've just made made a name for myself being an all-rounder, and that can work. Like, it's worked, but it's a tough thing to sell to people. It's very hard to like, oh, I can do anything. Like, well, what do you do? Well, I do
Everything.
video, I do photo, I do this, I do tours, I do virtual, I do, websites, I do
You did a
photogrammetry,
3D spherical thing
I do
for a historical thing
360s
before it got torn down. Like,
and that's neat, but it's very hard to pitch to people, to sell to people. Why should I hire you? Well, I can do all the things. Well, yeah, but I'm trying to do this one thing. Can you do that? Yeah. Is that what you do? Is that your thing? Well, no, I do all sorts of stuff. Like, you can get caught in some tough situations. And so perhaps for a younger me, I would say being a generalist, if that's what you want to do, is cool, but at least consider specializing a little bit more into one thing more than others, right? Like, maybe specialize more into video, and that's kind of what I ultimately ended up doing. But maybe specialize more into video, more notably, and those other things can just be kind of like a value add if they come up. Don't just be a generalist to be a generalist, although it's fun at times. So yeah, specialize a little bit, or at least consider it. It is a possible road. It's a hard road to articulate to people.
It is a hard road. Speaking of hard roads to go down, you do not have to be a full-time photographer.
No.
So one of the things that I kind of fell into is like, oh, photography. Well, this is going to be the thing I do. It would have been so much easier for me to get a job doing something else. And in fact, I did not have this realization until I did my first wedding show. I was literally the only photographer at that show who was a full-time photographer. Everyone else worked in finance or computer coding or HR or did whatever day job they had. And they shot weddings on the weekend, and I was the only one who was a full-time wedding photographer. I'm like, this is nuts. Now, I'm not saying there are no full-time wedding photographers. There definitely are. I'm just saying at that show, there were 10 of us, and I was the only one. But no, there is something to be said for the democratization of the field where cameras are better. We have a mutual friend who just bought that really high-end point and shoot, and he just throws it in full auto, and he gets great pictures from it. And
and
that's it.
It's so funny because it's one of those things where, like, he goes out and he shoots with this camera and he just has a good time and he produces some pretty excellent photos, and it's like, well, I didn't, I have the skill to potentially make better photos, but I didn't go out and shoot them on any camera.
The difference is he got in
he
his
went
car
and did it.
and he did the thing, which brings us back to the thing I already said, do the thing.
Yep.
Actually, can you put a quick note to link the Shia LaBeouf YouTube video of screaming "Just do it"?
Just do it. Make
which,
your
if you
dreams come
haven't
true.
watched, go click that link. Do the thing. 2021 is going to be the year of do the thing.
Yep. Do the thing. Make your dreams come true in 2021.
The thing. Yeah, so there's something to be said for the democratization of photo, but if you don't go do it, it doesn't matter. And if being a full-time photographer is so much more than making photos.
Yep.
If you don't like editing those photos or running your own business or dealing with clients and doing sales and marketing and updating your website and blogging and going to pitches and client meetings and the flood of emails and insurance and paperwork that comes along with being a photographer, enjoy photography. That is okay.
Yep, 100%. Along those same lines, I have success takes many forms. Like, I've done work in being the generalist that I just said I was. Like, I've worked in broadcast radio. I've worked for NBC. Like, I've done television stuff. I've done all sorts of random different things. And right now, I'm lucky enough to work in a job where I'm doing both tech and media things. And that's a fun mix for me and works. And that's not what I would have pictured being as a fresh graduate from high school as a picture of success, kind of doing a couple different things instead of just doing one thing. We tend to, again, get railroaded into a particular path and think there's only one way, one picture of success. And Success can take many forms, and ultimately at the end of the day, if you're happy, then that's success pretty much. So like if it works for you, then great, then that's where you need to be. So don't be afraid of some of these like weird alternative paths, or don't be afraid of working a day job while you work on your photo or video. A huge number of people do it. Like, again, what we perceive on social media is not reality. A lot of these people that seem like that's all they're doing is they're just so lucky that they get to work 100% into photo or video. Probably not. They probably have a day job, and you just don't see the day job because to them it's not notable, and that's okay. That's still success. Yeah.
So I want to flip a little uplifting message on top of that. You don't have to do it. Don't worry about it. I'm not trying to discourage you, okay? I'm just saying, if this is not the dream that you have, like, you can be a part-time photographer. You can still be a professional and be a part-time photographer. I think that is a great idea for a future topic. What is the difference between a full-time and a professional photographer? I like that. But no, the thing that I wanted to say is that there are enough clients for everyone. The photographers, spelled with a F-A-U-X, photographers, are not your competition. If you get good, you don't have to worry about, well, my nephew can do it for cheaper. Cool, let your nephew do it. He is not my competition. I just want to break this down because you probably don't believe me, but everyone's a photographer and it's so hard to find clients. Yeah, it really is. And that's something that I struggle with on a daily basis. But let's break down a wedding show really quick. 2,000 brides walk through a wedding show. Let's say there are 20 photographers there. That means there are 100 brides per photographer. Did I do that math right? There are 100. Do you want to shoot 100 weddings? I definitely do not. That is too many weddings. But that means that there's enough. There is enough work. You got to find it. And that's the hard part. And that's a completely different story. But don't get discouraged, and don't let other people, if someone else gets work, they're not directly taking work away from you. Your clients are going to be different than their clients. Just keep doing your thing and don't worry about everybody else.
Exactly. Focus less on what others are doing. Yep. I would also say that that it's also never too late to get into something. Like, let's say that you want to get into photography, but you haven't, and let's say that you've been working a different job for 10, 15 years, and you're like, oh, there's no way. Like, all these people have been working in photography for so long, or have been making videos, or whatever you want to do. We there's no way that I can compete with this community. Like, there's no way that I can break in. Like, there's always clients out there. You just need to figure out how to get them. There's always a space for you. There's always a space for your perspective, for your ideas, for your thoughts on the space that you're working in. It's not too late. Yes, it might be more difficult joining later, perhaps, but maybe not. Maybe you'll bring something really cool to the table, and you can skip a few steps because you've already made some mistakes in another field. You've got a little bit more wisdom than a lot of people do, and have to build up over time. So similarly to success takes many forms, is you can be successful later, and that's okay. And both Ben and I have the benefit, I suppose, in that we're young and we can't speak too much from a position of authority of being an older person, but having spoken to people who get into fields older and still become a success in their field, I know it's possible. I've seen this possible. I've talked to people. It definitely is possible. And if you're in that position and you would like to get into photography professionally, it's not too late. Or similarly, for younger people, perhaps, it's not too late to get into some aspect of photography, right? There's, like I was just talking about with drones, like, there are tons of people that shoot with drones now. Like, a lot of people just have them in their bag, but they don't really get that creative with them. They just use it for establishing shots, or use it to take a picture of some building, or what tons of people just use it for. But there's huge space for creative, artistic, interesting drone photography that, to be to give you a little pro tip right now, I think is not remotely close to being filled. There is not a lot. There are a lot of drone photographers out there. There is not a lot of good drone photography out there.
Oh, snap.
Yeah.
Better get my sunglasses because there's major shade in here.
So as a small example, if you want to get into drone photography, oh boy, it is not too late. It is early. Like, there is space for you. And I'm sure that's the same for many other aspects of the creative field. So yeah, it's not too late. Just try it. Get into it. Do it. Just do it.
Do it. Just do it. And as a master of the segue, here's a good one. When you get a camera, you will be asked to take people's photos whenever there is a cell phone in the room and people want a selfie. They're like, hey, you're a photographer, take the photo. It's going to happen. Don't be a jerk about it. Mm-hmm. That's all. That's it. Just that.
Yeah, we were trying really hard this episode to have the smoothest segues. I'm going to have another not smooth segue. I mean, what am I talking about? Yours was great. Which is, it is okay to take people's cell phone photos. You know, don't be a jerk about it. But it's also okay to say no to people. Not about cell phone photos, though. Apparently, we're saying that you have to say yes to that. But
you don't have to. I'm just saying you don't.
But you can say no to anything else.
If you're taking a group photo with friends, you will de facto become the person who is supposed to take the photo for whatever reason. Mm-hmm. Not like you taking a photo with their cell phone is going to be any better or more artistic than what they would do. But
it's a nice thing to do.
It's just, people appreciate you. Just don't be a jerk about it and take the photo.
But a nice thing for you is to learn how to say no. This has been a struggle for my entire life and will probably continue to be a struggle. It is very difficult for me to say no to people. It's very difficult for me to take a stand and just be like, I don't want to do that. I'm not into that.
You know what's
that doesn't
funny?
sound fun.
The next thing on my list was say no more often.
Yep. Exactly. Another example of things that appear on both of our lists because they deserve to be underlined.
It's worth underlining.
Yes. It is okay to say no. It is often better for you and your mental health to say no to people, especially when you're starting out. And because people like us tell you, try everything, do everything. That's great to a point.
Yeah, try it once.
Yeah.
We're saying when you don't know what you're doing, try everything.
Exactly.
But we talk about should you work for free. So there will be a link to that down in the description as well. But if something crosses your threshold of, hey, I don't want to do this, don't do it. If something doesn't meet your threshold of this is going to be worth it for me, don't do it. If someone is willing to pay, but they sound like a nightmare, I mean, I'm not going to tell you how to live your life because we've all been there. Mm-hmm. But if you have the ability to say no, you can say no. Mm-hmm. If you have an entire plate full and you are having trouble juggling all of the things that you currently have, you don't have to add another thing.
Yep. Yeah, it is so easy.
I will add a sub tip here. Don't give an excuse why, because people will immediately take that as you trying to make an excuse and try and put down a reason why your excuse is not valid. Just say no thank you and leave it.
Correct. Yeah, it is so easy to want to be a people pleaser and think, well, I just need to do everything and be nice to everyone, and that is how I'm going to grow and get bigger, and people are going to refer me. And it's very easy to get trapped in that mentality. Especially working for free, which again, go watch or listen to our episode on that. I'm not going to go into that too much, but it's not going to result in the good work that you think it is. And two, you're going to be so stressed out that it's going to impact the work that you really need to excel at. So just say no. Saying no is a professional thing to do, both for you and for clients that might not get a good experience because you're saying yes to everybody. So it is okay to say no. It is respectful to say no. If people don't like that you say no, too bad. Don't even give them a second thought. That is not your problem. Yep, not your problem. So say no.
Something else that I have is when you are on the internet, in the same vein as say no, you're allowed to say nothing. There are times where if you cross a certain threshold, as people in your friend group know you as a good photographer, You will get asked a lot of advice, and here's the deal. They do not actually want your advice. They want a pat on the back, or be told that they're doing a good job, or they want you to reinforce that their decision is actually a good decision. That they're not actually asking.
Yep.
You can just nod and say nothing. I've fallen into that. This one might be specifically for me rather than everyone listening to this, but Ben, people ask your advice a lot. They're not actually asking. They don't care. And when you tell them what they don't want to hear, they get mad at you.
Yep.
So just shut up and say nothing.
Yep. Say nothing, we say, as we record a podcast where we give people advice.
We have talked so much, and the rest of it is shut up. They don't want your advice. You know what? I think that's the end of that podcast. Good day. Thank you for listening.
We got a few more. We said we're going to give people 30.
We do have a couple more here.
Okay, speed round. I'm going to say one of my last couple is think less. We've been thinking a whole lot about careers and paths and what we would tell to our younger selves. And one of the things that I would tell to my younger self is think less. It's so easy to overthink everything. Like, just roll with it. Just try things. Just do things. Just do it. And don't think so much about it. It's so easy to get trapped into that mentality where you just feel like you need to think about everything before you do anything, and you end up not doing anything because you think about it too much. Think less. Not none, just less.
Yes, think some.
Think a little bit.
All right, so
an appropriate amount.
I have 3 left on my list in no particular order. First one is there are no second chances. The opportunity in whatever photo you were going to do will never happen again. But the flip side of that is there will always be a new opportunity. So one of the things about that is if you're looking at a beautiful sunset and you're like, oh, I should capture this. No, I'll come back tomorrow. No, if you really want it, get your camera out and do it right now, because that will never happen again the same way.
Yep.
You will not get another chance at what you were looking at right now. That is gone forever. And then tomorrow you can, if you go back to that same exact spot, it will be something completely different and completely new. And you can expand this to general life advice if you want to, outside of just photography. But I mean, mostly photography. That one's gone. It is something completely new. The rule of thumb, if you're wondering, should I shoot this, or maybe like if you're bracketing, how many exposures should I bracket? Think to yourself, when am I going to come back here again? So if you're in Iceland, like, you should shoot the thing. Don't think I'll come back next summer, because guess what? COVID will happen.
Yep.
You're not going back. So no, there is no second chance at the thing, but there will always be a new opportunity, is the flip side of that.
So what you're saying is burst mode everything.
That is a new conversation.
But I am joking. Do not burst mode everything. I just need to make that explicit.
We need an explicit warning label on that one. Do not burst mode. Do not attempt this at home. Second to last one is when it comes to business, do not race to the bottom. You might think that one of the reasons why you're not getting enough clients is that you're charging too much and so has more, but they charge a little less. And if you discount yourself, what will happen is you will race to the bottom, and you will start working your butt off, and it will not at all be worth it, because you will be making way less for the amount of effort that you're putting in, and those clients are going to be way harder to deal with and way more demanding. There is a rule called the 80-20 rule, where basically 80% of your income comes from like 20% of the things that you do. So you need to focus on that 20% of things. And then there's a reverse to that, where 80% of the pain in your butt will come from 20% of your clients. So you need to cut that 20% out, and then your life just got better. So
just say no.
Yeah, that also goes back to just say no. But no, you definitely, like, don't race to the bottom. There's no game to win there doing that. You're just need to
devaluing
charge
yourself,
what you're worth.
And you're devaluing your industry in general. Just don't do it.
And the last one that I have is, if you feel stuck, put your camera down. Now, there's something completely different to be said for it's a pandemic and I haven't picked up my camera in months and I feel stuck. That that might be the reverse of pick your camera up, but it's weird. Normal times, if you feel stuck, put your camera down. If you are looking at a photo situation and you're not sure what to do, don't just keep shooting the same photo over and over again and expecting something to change. I've seen photographers do that, and it from the sidelines, it frustrates the heck out of me. Put your camera down. Look with your eyes, not with your camera. Figure out what it is. Solve the problem without the camera in your hands, and then when the camera comes back up, it will do the thing you want. If you're just looking through the camera, then you're not really analyzing the scene for what it is. So that is kind of my final piece of advice, because there have been so many times where I am looking through and I just have an entire shot list where all these shots look the same, and I was changing one thing here or there of moving a light, and like all the shots are exactly the same and none of them are good.
And I have one last wrap-up piece of advice, which is, or a statement maybe. You are in for a strange journey, and that's okay. It's going to be messy. It's going to have lots of branching paths. It's going to be a maze of opportunities, and you're going to follow some, and you're not going to follow others, and you're going to want to beat yourself up a little bit and second guess, and don't worry about it. We have all been there. We have all had that uncertainty, and we all perceive our lives differently from the sheen that everybody else puts off. So don't worry about your strange journey being strange. That is part of the experience, and that helps you grow and be a better person and a better talent.
Being strange is how we became friends and started this podcast.
Correct. So. Being strange starts podcasts. That is confirmed.
Well, everyone who stuck it out this long, thank you so much for listening. We do hope that you were able to get some good advice from this, of our advice to our specific younger selves. I'm sure it applies to more than just the two of us, though. Yeah, we came up with a couple of fun. I got a New Year's resolution out of this conversation. That was good. We got some fun links in the description for you. Remember, do the thing, I think is number one. We want to hear, what is your New Year's resolution? It is January. It is New Year's resolution time. And tell us if you've already broken it.
And if you have broken it, I should say, it's okay. You can pick it back up again. It doesn't have to be the end.
It's never
you can
too
keep
late.
going. Yeah. Don't worry about it.
So yeah, leave a comment. Let us know if you enjoy advice like this. We also have a Patreon, which will be linked in the description. What are we talking about next time?
Something a lot less introspective, which is probably a good thing considering how long this episode has been. We're going to be talking about mobile apps. We're going to go back into software. We've talked about a few different software topics, and we haven't touched mobile apps, and I do get questions about that quite frequently. So we're going to talk about some mobile apps that you should pay attention to, and maybe ones that you shouldn't. So we'll see. We're gonna figure it out. And we're going to discuss some mobile apps.
Cool stuff you can do with your phone coming up next time. If you have questions or ideas for future episodes, you can email us at hello@photo-op.show.
Watch us on Ben's YouTube channel at NomCreative.
As in Om Nom Nom.
Share this with a friend, and you can listen to Photo Op anywhere podcasts are sold.
Or download it. 'Cause it's free.